She's been described as Australia's worst female serial killer.
Murdered this man.
Yes,
You tortured him.
of course.
Who are the most cruel people you know? There are people so cruel that the FBI doesn't want you to know them. These people look just like your neighbors, but they committed horrific crimes. In the scorching summer of 1985, Ricardo, or Richard, Leyva Munoz Ramirez, the Nightstalker, embarked on a reign of terror. The memory of the horror stories would haunt California for years to come. On June 28, 1984, Ramirez began with the murder of 79-year-old Jenny Vincow. He broke into her home and brutally attacked her with a knife. Her neck was cut so deeply that she was almost decapitated. Ramirez struck again on March 17, 1985, shooting Maria Hernandez with a .22 handgun as she pulled into her home. The bullet didn't hit her, but she played dead, waiting for the Nightstalker to leave the scene. But her roommate, Dale Yoshia Okazaki, heard the shot and came to investigate. Ramirez shot her in the head. Just an hour later, Ramirez shot Cillian Yu, or Veronica, in Monterey Park with the same gun. The serial killings drove the media to a frenzy. Unknown to him, his face appeared in almost all the major newspapers. On August 31, 1985, he was identified by residents in Boyle Heights. A mob of around 100 residents caught Ramirez. He was beaten mercilessly until the police came to his rescue. On September 20th, 1989, the Nightstalker was convicted of 43 charges, which included 13 murders. He was sentenced to death in the gas chamber. He died in 2013 due to complications from lymphoma while serving his sentence. Did you realize Theodore John Kaczynski, or the Unibomber, was a product of Harvard University? He was a mathematical prodigy who was accepted at Harvard at the age of 16. Kaczynski graduated from the university in 1962. Kaczynski left his academic career at Berkeley to lead a primitive lifestyle in a wood cabin in Montana in 1979. Until 1995, Kaczynski mailed or hand-delivered a series of bombs, starting with a bomb targeting Professor Buckley Christ. Christ called the police as he was suspicious, and the bomb injured the officer who opened the package. The FBI established a task force containing 150 personnel to catch the Unibomber. A reward of $1 million was offered for information on his capture. After Kaczynski's manifesto was published in newspapers, his brother David recognized him and tipped off the FBI. When he was arrested on April 3, 1996, the FBI task force had spent more than $50 million on the investigation. Kaczynski was sentenced to 8 years of life in prison, without the possibility of parole. He started serving in a supermax prison in Colorado. He finally committed suicide in his cell on June 10, 2023. Jaime Osuna, also known as the Man with Thousand Faces, has admitted to his crimes. When asked why, he said he preferred to go to prison rather than stay in the county jail. Jaime was born on March 7, 1988, in Bakersfield, California. He was a confessed Satanist and covered his face with tattoos. Jaime was convicted of the murder of Yvette Pena at a motel in Bakersfield. She was just 36 years old. Jaime is currently serving time in the Kings County Jail. Now, why would this granny appear on this list? She looks harmless. Tamara Samsonova, born on April 25, 1947, was called the Granny Ripper, or Baba Yaga. In 2000, her husband disappeared, but the police could not find the body. With her husband gone, she started renting out rooms in her apartment. She quarreled with one of her tenants, and on September 6, 2003, she killed the 44-year-old tenant and dismembered his body. She didn't stop there. In 2015, she met 79-year-old Valentina Nikolaevna Ulanova, who allowed Baba Yaga to stay in her apartment. However, soon, the two started quarreling, and Ulanova asked Samsonova to leave. Baba Yaga retaliated by poisoning Ulanova with the prescription drug phenazepam by mixing it with Olivier salad, Ulanova's favorite food. On July 23rd, she dismembered Ulanova's corpse using knives and a saw. Residents found parts of the body on the 26th, wrapped in a shower curtain and left outside near a pond. Samsonova was finally caught and tried. She was sent for compulsory psychiatric treatment in Kazan. Police later found her diary, which explained her acts in horrific detail. She is under investigation for 14 murders. Well, now you know why Granny is on this list. Park City, Kansas trembled as Dennis Rader, known as the BTK Killer, began his reign of terror. It started in Wichita on January 15, 1974. Rader attacked his first victims. 4 members of the Otero family were bound and strangled in their home in a chilling display of cruelty. Rader preferred women as his victims. He would bind them using rope and later suffocate them using a plastic bag. He also collected personal items from his victims, like underwear and licenses. During his cooling periods of killing, he would dress in stolen women's underwear and take pictures of himself. On April 4, 1974, Rader entered the home of 21-year-old Catherine Doreen Bright and Kevin Bright. He tied Catherine and Kevin, then proceeded to stab and strangle Catherine. Kevin was shot. Rader attracted a lot of attention as the BTK Killer. In a bizarre twist, he worked for ADT Security Services until 1988, installing CCTV systems for people concerned about the threat of the BTK Killer. He was arrested in February 2005 and sentenced to life in prison for a minimum of 175 years. If you are an up-and-coming amateur detective, this is one case you can try to solve. The Zodiac is a serial killer who operated in Carolina during the 1960s. He murdered 5 people in the San Francisco Bay Area, targeting young couples. But he claims to have slain 37 people. He started on December 20th, 1968, with the murder of David Arthur Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. The Zodiac took their lives while the couple was on their first date. Faraday was shot in the car, and Jensen was shot 5 times in the back as she ran away from the danger. Zodiac started writing to newspapers, giving clues and cryptograms. One such cipher, called Z340, remained unsolved for 51 years. San Francisco police investigated more than 2,500 suspects in their search for the elusive Zodiac. The case has never been solved. Have you heard of the Butcher of Hanover? Well, he's coming up next. Friedrich Heinrich Karl Haarmann, Fritz, was responsible for the sexual assault, murder, and dismemberment of at least 24 young boys during his time. Fritz would invite his victims to his house and often offer food and drinks. He would then bite into the victim's Adam's apple while strangling the victim. Fritz called this a love bite. But sometimes he would bite through the victim's Adam's apple and trachea. Fritz would then dismember the victims' bodies and throw them into the Line River. In May 1924, kids playing close to the riverbank discovered a human skull. Further discoveries prompted residents to search the area, as there had been rumors of young boys disappearing in Hanover. On June 24, 1924, undercover police officers arrested Fritz. He later confessed to gruesome murders and the dismemberment process, which would be more appropriate in a horror film. Haarmann was beheaded by guillotine on April 15, 1925. Gary Leon Ridgeway, or the Green River Killer, is someone you would not want to know. The police suspect he murdered 71 teenage girls and women in the 1980s and 1990s. Ridgeway targeted young women and sex workers, often strangling and dumping their bodies in the forest. He would later return to their dead bodies to have sex with them. Throughout his military service and later his married life, Gary frequently used the services of sex workers. He asked his wife to participate in sexual activities outdoors, and sometimes in places where he hid the bodies of his victims. He had an insatiable sexual desire. He confessed to strangling his victims while having sex, in his truck or at home. Ridgeway was arrested on November 30, 2001, on suspicion of murders he had committed almost 20 years ago. King County Superior Court Judge Richard Jones sentenced Ridgeway to 48 life sentences without parole and added a further 480 years for tampering with evidence. She is the sex worker who shot her clients. Aileen knew little of her father and mother. Her father hanged himself while serving in prison for raping a 7-year-old girl, and her mother left her in the care of her grandparents, who were alcoholics. She was sexually assaulted by her grandfather from an early age and became pregnant at 14 after being raped by a family friend. She led a troubled life, going in and out of jail and attempting to commit suicide 6 times. Aileen murdered 12 men. Later, she claimed that they were attempting to rape her. Aileen was executed by lethal injection on October 9, 2002, following a trial and some time on death row. She refused her last meal and opted for a cup of coffee. Aileen led a sad and tortured life. Their crimes were unbelievable, and they deserved the punishment they received. Do not miss out on exciting videos like this. Subscribe to our channel.